Mike.
I'm Brad.
And this is Ministry Chemistry.
Good. Can you say it faster?
Here we go.
Welcome back to another episode of Ministry Chemistry, where I am so excited about today's conversation.
Wow, I didn't know you were so excited until just now.
I am. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Mike said this fantastic phrase in a conversation earlier, and it just springboarded this whole conversation that we are now going to give you insight and privy to. And the phrase is refrigerator rights. Mike, can you explain what that means?
Basically, that means like if you invited me over, I could go to the refrigerator and get something out, something to drink, a Coke, let's say, without even asking for something to drink.
Because you have refrigerator rights.
Yeah, I just go get it.
Isn't that a great phrase?
Like if I need ketchup for my fries, I just go get it. I don't ask you, do you have any ketchup?
Right.
I just go get it.
Can I get some ketchup, please? Yeah. You just peruse the fridge and walk in. And it came from a conversation we were talking about, and I would love listeners, if you feel like compelled to write in, I think this would be a great week to write in and share on some of our podcast forums.
Any week is a great week to write
Any
in.
week is a great week.
This is an extra great week to write in.
Because our question to you is going to be, do you know your neighbors? And this comes on the heels of many conversations the three of us have had recently about what does it look like to invite someone to church, whether that be what does the church need to look like and be to be enticing to someone who doesn't typically go, or do we really know anybody in our lives in a way that we would want to invite them to church or know them well enough to know that they might need a church to go to? And so I will be the first one to admit I have lived in the same neighborhood now for about 4 years. I love my little house. I love my little neighborhood. Of my 4 neighbor possibilities, I have only met one who I know by name. Now, I've met 2 of the 4 others. So of the 4, I've known 3, seen their faces and talked to them in person. But only 1 did I have their name. And we actually exchanged numbers in case something were to happen. And it was Christmas time, and like she wanted to make sure if she got packages, I could let them know when they arrived, and if I was home, and vice versa. It was real sweet. But I have not been one in those 4 years, to go out and actively meet my neighbors.
I have some ideas for how you can fix that.
Thanks. Do you know all of your neighbors?
I've gotten to know more and more. Yeah.
Brad, do you know all of your neighbors?
Not by name. Not all of them by name, but we talk to them quite frequently, more because of our dog than anything else.
Oh,
Dogs
you have a dog.
are a great thing.
Are they?
Ours is
They
the kids. Ours is the kids.
Yeah.
The kids were the catalyst. But yeah, dogs are.
Yeah, I don't have a dog and I don't have kids, so I guess if I got some of those,
we know
I could meet my neighbors.
We know all the neighbors on our side of the street, which
Oh.
is 7 houses.
It almost felt like our side of the tracks kind of sentence there.
Well, our side.
We don't associate with them.
Yeah, but I didn't say which side of the tracks.
15 yards away, I don't go to there. But
Yeah. You just reminded me of another South Park reference.
Wow, who knew Mike was such a South Park fan?
I'm not. I know like 2 episodes, and you always say things reminding me of those 1 and 2 episodes. So.
That's all good. But when I was growing up, we knew all of our neighbors.
Yeah.
I mean, in our neighborhood, I lived
for better or worse.
I grew up in Southeast Ohio, and it's rather hilly. It's the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and so we, at the top of our hill where there was some houses around, we had a fire pit, and it never failed. At least a couple times a month, one of the neighbors would start a fire, and other neighbors would bring their lawn chairs around, and we'd sit and we'd talk, and us kids, we'd play, and we'd roll down the hill and get all grass stainy and all that, and we had a neighbor who pretended to eat crickets and fireflies. He didn't really. Now that I'm an adult, I know that, I think, still.
High in protein.
I know. But, we'd roast marshmallows, and it was like you knew your neighbors. And I had I won't say I had refrigerator rights because some of them were older neighbors, but I could at least, walk in their house and my mom not freak out. So what does it take to build those relationships? Because when I was growing up, I never saw, my mom say, we must meet our neighbors. She just knew them. But
some of that now I would say it definitely takes initiative. I mean, it takes more initiative.
Yeah.
Because where you grew up, it's very similar to where I grew up, And I think the era too. I don't think it's just like an Appalachian thing. I'm sure the same was true where Brad grew up in Xenia. Most people,
Xenia, Ohio.
yeah, most people live there their whole lives.
Yeah.
You know, my grandparents lived on the same piece of property. My mom has lived on the same piece of land for 39 years. So that's a generational thing. So it was kind of like, it was inevitable that you didn't get to know your neighbors. You had just always known your neighbors because you grew up beside them and you inherited the house that you grew up in. So the neighbors didn't change.
That's a terrific insight. You didn't get to know your neighbors. You just always knew them.
Yeah.
They're
Like
always
if
there.
I went home today though, let's say something happened to my mom, we inherited her house and my wife and I decided to move in. I wouldn't need to get to know my neighbors because I already know them because they've always been there. So there's a cultural generational. Now, our generation is probably the most dispersed than any other generation before us. Before Gen X. Yeah, that's what I mean. Transient. Like when I was growing up, my whole family lived within a 15-minute driving radius, and you know now my wife and I are both several hours away from our families, so it's different. And most families in our neighborhood are the same. So I think it takes more intentionality to do that. It takes a little bit more effort. It's not a lot of effort, but
Is it important? Is it important to know our neighbors now?
Yes.
Yeah? Because many people don't.
We can be isolated, and I think social media plays into that we can be connected but isolated. The other, the invention of the garage door opener has also separated us because all we have to do is drive in. We don't have to say hi to anybody or anything.
I've read about that was a big, not isolator, but would that be the right word even? Garages started separating neighbors.
Well, now we don't have front porches. We have back decks. And so everything separates us from the people around us.
We build fences.
Unless you can see your neighbors from your deck. It's like, hey, neighbor, what are you doing? Although I know my neighbors, and I know most of them by name, I've never been into any one of their houses.
No refrigerator rights.
I don't even know if I have porch rights. I probably do. I mean, when I run into my neighbors, I talk to them and we have conversations about lots of different things, but I don't know that I've ever been on any of their porches.
So I have a great front porch. It has a good old fashioned porch swing. I love my porch. And if I drove into my driveway one day and someone was sitting on my porch I didn't know, I'd be really leery and maybe a little scared and maybe pre-dial like 911, or I'd tell a friend, I'm getting out of my car and there's someone I don't know on my porch, rather than, oh, it's my neighbor, they must need something. So that you don't think you even have porch rights is an interesting comment. Because had we sat on our neighbors' porches at some point growing up, they would have been like, oh, the Wilson kids are sitting on our porch. I wonder what they want. Because that's the other thought I had. I don't need my neighbors.
Yeah.
We live outside of Columbus, Ohio, so city life. I don't have to go next door to borrow a cup of sugar or 2 eggs or some milk for some recipe because I've got a 24-hour Walmart less than 10 minutes away. I've got a Kroger grocery store that's open until 11 or 12 at night. I don't need my neighbors.
But when I was growing up, I don't know that we were necessarily that isolated. I mean, yeah, we had a convenience store down the street. I could ride my bike down to the convenience store, but we still went next door to get a cup of sugar. So I don't know that. Did we need their cup of sugar? No, it was just a neighborly thing to do and expect.
Expect.
Hey, yeah. You wouldn't go next door and say, "May I have a cup of sugar? Can I have a cup of sugar?" If you didn't expect them to say yes. It'd be like,
Sure. Oh,
if-
yeah.
if I don't think they're going to say yes, I'm going to ride down to the store and get one.
Or mind if it would be reciprocated.
yeah.
Like a couple days later, you know that cup of sugar? I now need some. Do you have some?
Well, that's kind of the chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
Which came first, the borrowing or the, loaning out?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost, it would almost be better for you to go borrow from your neighbor to extend the invitation that they could borrow from you.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, this is maybe some self-help session for Renee. I don't need my neighbors for friendship or like the
Do
fire.
your neighbors listen?
No,
Okay.
they don't know me. Seriously, they don't know
Renee's
me.
going to be the crazy cat lady.
I don't have cats, so
You will.
no, I won't. But thank
You're going
you.
to have like 8.
And why would you liken me to a crazy cat lady? No.
I just see
Anyway,
it.
I don't need them for community, which I think might have changed over time too, because like I said, I grew up in a neighborhood where that was a big portion of community. Do you guys need your neighbors as friends or as community?
Well, I know that until probably the last year or so, felt a little bit isolated in our neighborhood because we didn't know our neighbors. So I don't know that we needed it because obviously we had church family and community and friendships outside of our neighborhood.
But it's enhanced.
Well, yeah, just being a part, like it goes from being a neighborhood to a community.
Like the difference from having a house or having a home.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I can tell you, like, my wife and I love looking at houses. Like, we went on a date night Friday, had dinner, and went and looked at a house. Just drove by. We love doing it. But our neighborhood now, as it's transitioning into a community, is keeping us put. Like, that's another layer of things. But, we talked about that. It's like, oh, yeah, we love this beautiful house. We would love this plot of land. But, man, we'd be giving up our neighborhood if we did that.
Now that you say that, I don't know any of my neighbors, but I've never felt unsafe in my neighborhood, and I like my neighborhood. I can't call it a community, right? Because I don't know them. But I like them all because they don't make me feel unsafe.
Well, that's well, and that goes to one of those initiative things that we mentioned. One of the neighbors that we've gotten to know or getting to know better, he said when they first moved into their house, which has not been that long ago, within the last year, like the neighbor across the street came over to them. They had never had a conversation before. They didn't know each other's name. The neighbor across the street came over to him and said, "Hey, we're getting ready to go on vacation. Would you mind just keeping an eye on our house?" And it was just kind of one of those, you're part of the neighborhood. It's a good neighborhood, so you must be a good neighbor. So make sure no one is in my house.
What kind of assumptions go into the statement, it's a good neighborhood?
I mean, for me, I've left my garage door open overnight many times, accidentally, and never had anything missing. Never, other than like senior tag, which you're welcome to explain that if you want. We've never had anything bad, troubling.
For those that have never heard
around
of
our
senior
neighborhood.
tag, it is a giant game of tag that gets played in some high schools in our area.
Over like a month or something.
Well, typically right after spring break, for about a month or 6 weeks, senior classes, they divvy up into teams, and there's a whole bracket system. And I honestly don't know why it's still allowed, because at one of the schools I know of, there's like a buy-in, like you got to give $20 per team or $50 per team. And then the person coordinating the senior tag and the brackets, they get a cut of that to facilitate this gambling ring. And then like the winning team gets the rest of the takings. Like you can make a pretty penny off of this.
It's
Anyway,
big enough to the point in our area, restaurants like Chipotle have signs up that say
no
no
senior tag. Movie theaters,
So,
no senior
yeah,
tag.
That's how
because
it's how big it's gotten.
you either have most schools use Nerf guns, some use squirt guns, but I think Nerf guns is the one. and you're playing tag with Nerf guns, and there's rules like you can't shoot someone if they're only in their underwear. So kids will literally, who have cars, they will run from their houses through their driveway to their cars in their underwear and get dressed in their cars, so they can't get hit with their Nerf gun from a competing team. Or they'll streak through neighbors' yards to get to their house from the buses if they still ride the bus or something. So that's what Mike's talking about. Even through senior tag,
That was
he hasn't had kids like hide out in some
conversation.
open garage.
She was excited about explaining that.
Senior tag's awesome. I think it's
Is
a super
it?
fun thing to do.
Is it?
Well,
Listen,
yeah.
Tell me how awesome it is when you have a 5-year-old little girl. Okay.
What
You know,
happened?
Just thinking about her becoming a senior, and yeah.
If that's the worst shenanigan a senior ever does,
Yeah, if
maybe
the worst
I
thing,
don't know horror
Yeah, if the
stories
worst thing
of,
my
like, you
daughter
do.
does is run naked through the front yard, like
not naked. She can be in like a sports bra and undies.
yeah,
It's
no,
like a swimsuit.
no, she can't.
Some women think it's okay to run in that. I'm not saying
No,
it
she
is.
can't.
I'm just saying.
We may convert to Catholicism so that she can be a nun. Like that's the
Okay.
She
kind
can be.
Anyway,
So I was thinking, Brad mentioned the social media and garage door opener, but I wonder if the very nature of our generation being more transient ties into us being less neighborly.
yeah, as much as I love my house and it's become my home, it truly has, which is a great sentence because for years I was moving to different places. In fact, I had a friend who finally once was like, I'm not moving you again. Just because I would live in an apartment for a couple years and like just want a new place. And he's like, I'm not helping again.
Well, how much effort are you willing to put in if you think you're going to move or there's a decent chance that your neighbors are going to move?
oh, yeah.
Why should I get to know these people if they're going to be gone in the next 2 years?
But
you know?
even for as much as I love my house and right now, I don't see myself there for the next 39 years like your mom.
Well, and maybe that's why we've put in more effort, and probably you guys as well, even though you just recently moved. What, it's 2 years now you've been in your house?
Yeah, 2.5.
Yeah. But you don't have any intention of going anywhere.
No.
I mean, as much as my wife and I love looking at houses, I'm not going to spend the money that it takes to buy a new house. I know me. So,
And you know the house that
but that does filter into how much effort you're going to put in. You can't control what your neighbors do, but you know, I'm probably going to be here, so I should invest in these relationships a little bit.
yeah. Well, and the house that has made the most impact on me in my life was my grandparents. And they
Yeah.
were there for 30 some years, but that's where we had Christmas and that's where we had things and everything felt like home. And we knew our grandparents' neighbors because they knew their neighbors. And when the grandkids came, right, like the neighbors knew the stories and were excited to meet the grandkids. And there's something to that. Now, my mom, I'll tell you, she knows all her neighbors and she's lived in her neighborhood less time than I've lived in mine. And sometimes it's really annoying because I don't want to hear the stories of these people I will never meet and don't know. But sometimes I'm like, wow, she has met the people that live around her. And if her house catches on fire, she will know much sooner than I will because no one has my number.
So we said we were going to challenge you. I imagine, I'm just guessing.
Who said that? No one said they were going to challenge me. Who
Well,
said that?
I said it in my own head.
Oh, great. Now it's said out loud.
I heard it.
Super.
I imagine when Renee is home, you are inside your house, like doors, shades closed up.
Oh, no, not doors and shades closed up. You make me sound
You're
like this
that
weirdo
weird.
recluse.
You're a-
No. If
You
I'm
hermit when you're at home. You're not sitting out on the front porch
I'm
like,
not
howdy,
often.
neighbor. Good to see y'all.
no,
I've got
no.
that old-fashioned
I work in
porch
my
swing.
yard, though. I work outside. My windows are open on the
You
nice
got headphones
days.
on when you're working in your yard, don't you?
No, I don't.
Oh,
No,
I'm
I
sorry.
like the sounds of nature.
I was going to say, so Brad
That sounded so dumb.
Brad
even
said
as I said
this.
it.
Brad said this, and mine is very similar. We've gotten to know a lot of our neighbors just by walking down the sidewalk
Yeah.
and just like people being outside, you know,
Oh, yeah.
playing with their dog, playing with their kid, going for a walk, passing each other on the sidewalk, and you do that enough.
So one day after church, I saw new neighbors that had just moved in that I didn't know. And I parked my car in my garage and I was like, took a deep breath and I said, all right, I'm going to do this. And I walked down the sidewalk and I like introduced myself and they're like, do you need something? I'm like, no, I'm just trying to get, like they asked me, do I need something? Right. Because they live in the same kind of mental space, I think, which is unless you really need me, why do I need to know you? But I said, no, I just want to know your names and I live in this house. And
You just gave me a really good thought that applies to this
yeah,
conversation.
go. But I did meet them.
And it
for the
applies to
record.
something both of you said. You said, I don't need my neighbors.
Which you? Me?
Renee. Sorry. Renee said, I don't need my neighbors. And Brad said,
Now I sound terrible.
when you were a kid, you would borrow from your neighbors, like something as simple as sugar, even though you didn't need to.
Right.
I think there's an aspect of people want to be needed.
Oh, absolutely.
So maybe like a simple effort of borrowing something, like, hey, can I borrow a cup of sugar? I'm making brownies. Would you like a brownie when I make them? It lets your neighbor know that they're needed, even if just for
Can I borrow a cup of sugar? I'm making you brownies.
Right. That's what I heard too. But no, it's sweet. I understand what you're saying.
There's what I'm getting at is we say, and I agree with my own thought that getting to know your neighbors
Legend in my own
takes
mind.
intentionality, it takes effort, but it doesn't take like this big grandiose effort.
No,
as
it
simple
doesn't.
as walking down the sidewalk or a simple gesture to let someone know, like, hey, you're my neighbor and feel like I can trust you for a cup of sugar and that you're not going to poison it or put anthrax in it.
Well, especially since I'm making them for you. I also, have this thought. I said it, I don't need them because I have friends, I have community, I have family. Just because it doesn't surround my home doesn't mean I don't have it. But there's also this expectation in my world that if I commit relationally to you in friendship, in neighborship, whatever it might be, that's a level of engagement and involvement, right? And sometimes,
And you ain't got time for that.
sometimes, some weeks, I might be just mentally and emotionally drained and exhausted with the people that I've put priority on. One,
Ooh, this is personality profiling.
it is. Two, when we talk about refrigerator rights,
You don't want to give them up.
well,
I
don't
don't want
need-
people in my refrigerator drinking my Coke.
and maybe needs the wrong word, but I don't anticipate getting refrigerator rights with any of my neighbors. But with my close friends, if I don't have refrigerator rights with my close friends, which I do, thank you close friends also, because you listen, that would hurt my heart. Like anyone I consider close to me, I can definitely get into their fridge, and they can get into my fridge and get whatever they want. They can say, Renee, you don't have anything in your fridge. They can also say that.
Well,
I feed it all to my cats.
oh, this is a great segue. I love it because I've been holding on to this thought the whole time.
Go.
I've been holding on to this thought. I never thought that. Like 8 years ago, probably for up until this year, never thought I'd ever get refrigerator rights. And we kind of crossed that line, walking. Kids getting to know other kids. We get to know their parents. One of those neighbors was like, "Hey, we're gonna have a birthday party for our kid, but we're gonna turn it into a neighborhood block party cookout." And we went over, and the wife had like this wine tree on her counter, and she looked at my wife and she goes, "What kind of wine do you like?" And Jess was like, "Why?" And she goes, "I just like to know what other people like because I buy it and keep it for when they come over."
Oh,
That's cool.
That
That
cool.
is super intentional, but it was just this like, hey, these are the type of people, you're not going to get it with your own neighborhood, but these are the type of people that I could probably walk into their house, go to their fridge, grab something to drink, and they would think nothing of it.
That's
and we
cool.
don't even know them that well.
Yeah, that's cool.
So you never know.
Well, and you know where that makes me go, like Jesus juke wise? You don't even know if they know Jesus or not.
I know they don't.
But, okay, you know that they
Which
don't
makes-
know Jesus.
Which makes it even cooler,
Excuse
though.
me.
That-
Right.
I mean, that's a whole
That's
nother
a level
conversation.
that's a level of radical hospitality that even church folk
Heck
don't
yeah,
get.
it is.
Like, I'm going to keep stuff in my fridge because I know you'll eventually. So I do that. I keep things in my fridge for the friends that come over that I know they're going to want this when they get here. I don't drink it or I don't eat it. But when they come, I know they will. That's a level of hospitality that.
It's got fur on it by the time
I feel like that needs. I feel like that needs a new phrase. Like I feel like there's a beyond refrigerator rights. Like I'm not just going to give you access to what I got. I'm going to make sure you got what you want in my
I do.
refrigerator.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
That's beyond refrigerator rights.
That's BRR.
Brr.
Terrible joke. Why do you let me do
But
that?
it tied to the
Terrible.
refrigerator so
I know,
well.
I know it did. Right.
I love
Thank
the
you,
I
friend.
love the refrigeration
Oh, we're
aspect.
so punny. So that's our question. Those are some of our questions this week. Who gets refrigerator rights in your home? Do you know your neighbors? And what value is there to either set of people in your life? And should they be the same? For Ministry Chemistry, I'm Renee.
Still Mike.
And Brad.
We'll see you next time.